Imagine watching a man on screen so sincere, so quietly brave, that you almost forget he's acting. His voice trembles, his eyes carry kindness, and somehow you feel that if the world ever turned dark, this man would still stand for what's right. That was the strange magic of James Stewart. Audiences believed him not because Hollywood told them to, but because something inside him felt real. And the deeper you look into his life, the more surprising truth you discover. The gentle heroes he played weren't inventions. They were reflections of a man whose real courage was even greater than anything the movies ever showed. Long before the awards, before the legendary films, before millions of people recognized his voice in dark theaters, Stewart was simply a tall, shy young man from Indiana, Pennsylvania. He grew up surrounded by the steady values of a small American town where reputation mattered more than fame, and honesty was the quiet rule everyone lived by. Those early lessons shaped him. When he stepped onto Broadway in the 1930s, he didn't try to dominate the stage with loud performances or dramatic gestures. Instead, he did something rare. He acted like a real person. Directors quickly noticed that when Stewart spoke, audiences leaned forward, not because he was flashy, but because he felt honest. Hollywood soon followed. By the late 1930s and early 1940s, Stewart had become one of the most beloved actors in American cinema. His performances carried something audiences couldn't quite explain. In Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, he stood alone against corruption, with a voice that cracked but never broke. In Rear Window, he transformed quiet observation into gripping suspense without ever leaving a wheelchair. And in It's a Wonderful Life, he created George Bailey, a man whose small sacrifices quietly changed the lives of everyone around him. These weren't superheroes or fearless warriors. They were ordinary men discovering courage when life demanded it. That authenticity made Stewart unforgettable. But then, history intervened. In 1941, while many actors stayed comfortably in Hollywood, Stewart made a decision that shocked the industry. He enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces. Studio executives worried that the war would destroy his career. Some even tried to stop him, but Stewart had already made up his mind. Fame meant nothing if he ignored his responsibility. At first, the military treated him cautiously. Many assumed the famous actor would serve in promotional roles or training films. Stewart refused. He trained seriously as a bomber pilot, determined to serve like any other soldier. Eventually, he flew combat missions over Nazi-occupied Europe during some of the most dangerous years of World War II. Those missions were not symbolic gestures. Bombers faced intense anti-aircraft fire and deadly fighter attacks. Many crews never returned. Stewart commanded squadrons, carried the weight of his men's lives, and experienced the same fear and pressure every pilot felt in the skies above Europe. Yet, when the war ended, he rarely spoke about it. Friends later said the experience changed him. The easy laughter of his early career became quieter, deeper, more thoughtful. But something else had changed too. The courage audiences admired on screen was now backed by real sacrifice. Stewart eventually rose to the rank of Brigadier General in the Air Force Reserve, making him one of the highest-ranking actors ever to serve in the United States military. Still, he never bragged about it. When interviewers tried to discuss his wartime service, Stewart often shifted the conversation back to his fellow pilots, insisting they were the real heroes. That humility only strengthened the public's admiration. When Stewart returned to Hollywood after the war, his performances carried a new emotional depth. Directors like Alfred Hitchcock understood that his quiet intensity could transform suspense into something personal. In Rear Window and Vertigo, Stewart's characters felt haunted, complicated, human. Yet he never lost the gentle sincerity that made audiences trust him. Even decades later, people still felt comfort when they heard that familiar voice or saw that slightly awkward smile. By the time Stewart passed away in 1997, Hollywood had changed dramatically. The industry was louder, faster, and far more cynical than the world he first entered. Yet his legacy remained untouched, not because he was the most dramatic actor of his era or the most glamorous star, but because he represented something increasingly rare: decency without weakness, courage without arrogance, and kindness without performance. Today, when audiences rediscover his films, they feel the same quiet power that once filled theaters across America. The characters he played still remind us that the strongest heroes are not always the loudest or the toughest. Sometimes they are simply the ones who refuse to give up on what is right. And that is why James Stewart is more than a Hollywood legend. He's a reminder that true courage does not always shout. Sometimes it speaks in a calm voice, stands its ground when it matters most, and leaves behind a legacy that feels just as powerful generations